our top story tonight is the war on men, for the lack of a better word, on CNN, specifically the recent podcast that they had with a female host and a female guest from the Atlantic, talking about dating and specifically talking about men. And what better way to talk about men is by not inviting one. And when I said they talked about men, I mean they bashed men for about 30 minutes or so. Now, I'm not going to show you all 30 minutes of it, but we're going to talk about four specific highlights or lowlights, as I should say. And before you jump on me for attacking CNN, and I am not a conservative, I am not a Republican, but I'm also not a liberal or a Democrat. I actually think that both sides haven't done anything good for men's issues in at least 2 decades. So today, I am picking on one of these sides because, well, you'll see in a second. So let's start with the first segment here. Ready?
A lot of people talk about this idea of like heteropessimism today, which, I think just gets at this idea that a lot of women particularly are fed up with the way that they're being treated by men on the apps. And
I mean, this is gaslighting 101, which, you got to tell it, you got to give it to them. Western women do so well. First of all, on dating apps, men could not be shitty to women even if they tried, because of how few matches the men get. You really think men are going to be rude to the few women that matched with them, where women have hundreds and sometimes thousands of likes? And no wonder that they look at men as disposable and they treat men like shit. I mean, honestly, it's not like they are stupid. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And this is classic women, classic modern women, where they take something that's like reality and they just turn it around and go like, yeah, no, it's that way, the opposite way. So just delicious toxic poison. Let's move on to the next one.
Seen fear of sexual assault rising among women since, in the last few years, you've seen people saying they're.
Yeah, I'm going to cut her off right here. And this is another classic example of women taking their feelings over facts. Because if you actually Google or ChatGPT the facts, you will see there are absolutely no evidence of sexual assault convictions, because accusations does not mean that the crime was committed. More and more times it doesn't nowadays, with all of the false accusations that these modern women realize they can manufacture. If look at any statistics by state, nationwide, and even in the world, it looks like the convictions are either stayed the same or even gone down. So this is just not fucking true, and it's not that hard to find that out. But again, feelings is what's more important than the evidence, right? Again, going back to false accusations, that's what happens almost every time. And the fact that CNN is promoting, feelings over reality, over facts, is telling you something, right? And by the way, I'll have Fox News featured here also. I've done that before. So both sides are gaslighting, as we're just talking about this one. And again, the feminism is just the CNN is just soaked with feminism, which I don't mind. I don't mind both sides if both sides would be presented, well. But when was the last time you had any men's issues being presented in a true, honest light on any really of liberal or conservatives mainstream media? I haven't seen that yet. All right, next one.
Like, people talk about ghosting. It's like the act of not being responded to is somehow, like, people talk about it like it's a trauma.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm like, try being dumped in a restaurant.
Right. I mean, I think that's a reason people hate ghosting, but I do kind of think it's become this sort of like boogeyman for modern dating where
Well, so then they go on and on and on to make many excuses why ghosting is okay. By the way, who the fuck gets dumped at the restaurants? And you really think that that happens anywhere near as much as in ghosting? Now, listen, call me an old fart all you will, but I believe ghosting is one of the most disrespectful things people can do to each other in any type of relationship. I do not tolerate ghosting in any shape form, from women in romantic situations, from people in general, from friends, business partners, whatever. And everybody who's in my life knows that ghosting is disrespectful, and also such a cowardly way to back out of another person's life, right? Nobody's got balls anymore to say, listen, I had a really good time with you, but I don't think we're a good match. I'm not interested, but I wish you the best of luck. It's not even fucking that hard, and women just can't do it. Not that men are not guilty of that either. But to me, if you ghost me, we're done. I don't care how long I've known you. I don't care how much business we've done. I don't care how long we've dated. If you disrespect me, we're done. Essentially, allowing ghosting is having no self-respect. Now, women do it all the time. The problem is that, of course, has everything that comes down to men tolerating it, men tolerating this. So it is a problem, and the fact that they're kind of like, well, but no, it is unacceptable. And again, I wouldn't tolerate it in any part of my life, any part of my life. Okay, now let's, like, this one, I kind of wanted to save it for the last, even though it's kind of probably the most toxic mix of bullshit that these two ladies cooked up. But let's get to this.
So I think that we are in a very tricky political and cultural moment for dating, just because men and women are kind of growing further apart in a lot of ways, and especially among young people. You see that young men are moving further to the right, young women growing more progressive, and I think for a lot of women in particular, it can just sort of feel like this is not a time where I trust men. I feel respected by men. I don't necessarily want to go out and meet strangers who are men. We have an administration that is, stripping away reproductive rights and protections against gender discrimination. And you can see in surveys that there is this kind of resentment among a lot of men, kind of a backlash to Me Too, a backlash to women gaining financial independence, going to college more than men now.
Yes, well, let me explain. First of all, the backlash to the Me Too movement is because you ladies figured out how to use it against men with false accusations with absolutely no repercussions. The backlash to the college thing is because even though women are now graduating at a higher rate than men, every single program, every single budget that encourages one of the sexes to go to college is for women. So they're essentially taking money from men and giving it to women, even though women are now graduating at a much higher rate than men. Yeah, men are not really happy about it. But also don't pretend like, oh, this administration, is really anti-women. Tens of millions of women voted for this administration, right? So again, just complete lack of accountability on female part, right? And let's put everything on men. Women also voted for this guy too. And this whole notion that, oh, we don't trust men anymore, we don't want to be around men. Fuck off. Everything around you has been mainly built and maintained by us. If you don't want men, then don't call us. Don't call 911 when you're in trouble. Don't call the hospitals where the mainly doctors are men. Don't call the fire department, and certainly don't enjoy the protection of our military, which is still very much mainly men. So this notion that, oh, men are this toxic and horrible. And again, this is the gaslighting 101. Women, the Western women who actually became toxic and narcissistic, have figured out, how we can, hide that from men? We're going to call them toxic and narcissistic and toxic masculinity. See, we're going to put the name toxic in front of masculinity, and We don't have to be held responsible for anything that we say or do. This segment is essentially everything that's wrong with Western women, and the reason why men like me want to have nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with them. That's why I moved to Thailand. And even here, every time I have an interaction with a Western woman, it's never a good, pleasant experience for me. And I don't think it will ever be. That's why I will stay here for the rest of my life. So, there's only so many sort of segments that I want to show you because of, you get the idea, right? You get the idea that essentially women, and again, I don't think these are stupid women because, again, they know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing. They're not like, oh wow, I can't believe this is happening. Why? No. They know exactly what's happening. They are themselves on dating apps if they're single. They have friends who are on dating apps. They know exactly what's going on. But this, new trend, if you will, to blame men for whatever, right? Is really caught on. And the problem is, once again, yes, modern women are toxic. They're narcissistic. They, they will gaslight you in any chance they have. But the only reason it's happening is because men have allowed this, right? Everything that they're saying is essentially because men allowed it. I myself, if one of the reasons I want this channel to become popular and be in partnership with other big influencers and community leaders, is because I want to have this one day, 24 hours. I call it menopause, where men just don't show up to their fucking jobs for just one day, and we'll see what happens when these toxic men that they're afraid of and feel they disrespected by. Let's see what fucking happens, ladies. Just 24 hours. I don't think that we're even going to make it to 24 hours until you know what's going to happen, right? But this is something that I really would love to create, So, it is until men decide that they had enough, that this is going to continue on and on and on. The Rock in the comments says the so-called war on man is rather an ancient idea. Most cultures mock men for failing to meet their expectations. Even the primitive ones will mock and banish those who couldn't hunt the animals. Well, I don't have a problem with that. Men have a role in this society, so do women. Are there fair roles? No. But is it fair that we've been given muscles and testosterone and women weren't, and they're just weaker sex? No, no. Thank God I don't have periods. Thank God I don't have to give birth to children. Thank God I got muscles and I can stand up for myself. Thank God I am taller and stronger than most other women. There are exceptions, obviously, right? So I don't have a problem. I am on the first lines to shame men for not being men, which is the majority of fucking Western men. So the war on men needs to come from a real man, not from women gaslighting us into things that are not even true. So that's a different war on men that I'm talking about. I'm perfectly fine with that other one. Free Surf 88 says modern women are crazy. No, well, yes, but that it's not the crazy that we should be scared of and concerned about, right? Women were generally, had their crazy moments, but it's the women that are toxic and are also empowered together, right? There are no worse species on this planet, and probably others with life on it, than modern women who feel empowered with toxicity. So it's not I can deal with crazy. I can deal with crazy. So, for example, nearly every culture agrees that it's unmanly to cry outside one's house, no matter how primitive or different from West the culture is. Most cultures, however, allow child's and girl cries. I'm sorry. We're going to have to agree to disagree here. Well, I agree. I mean, there are exceptions. If a man's mother died, or a child died, or wife died, yes, you're allowed to cry in public a little. But what men cry about nowadays, not only in public but on television, is fucking pathetic. And a lot of times they cried over girls, like little boys. Yeah, no, crying is unacceptable for real men, and it shouldn't be acceptable because we're supposed to have our feelings intact, right? We should be in control of our feelings most of the time. And if when you're not, if you want to lose it, you better go into the darkest corner of the emptiest room in the world and do that when nobody sees. Okay, like I said, unless your mother died, you're not to cry in public. Yes, that's for women, and I have no problems with that. I think that's a good thing, but explain to me why you think it's a bad thing, and we'll talk about it. Okay, they're so scared of men that they walk half naked, drunken through the streets and go home with strangers for one night stand. Oh yeah, listen, all of this is fucking gaslighting. It is absolute gaslighting where it's like, oh, we're afraid of men, we'd rather pick the bear. By all means, men like me already walked away. My interaction with Western women is very minor, and I got to tell you, I have zero respect for Western women unless it's proven otherwise, right? I have respect for Asian women, specifically Thai women, no problem. I mean, elderly Western women, but I mean, like modern, young generation, under 40 women, no. The other day, I actually shouldered one and I knew that was going to happen sooner or later, because when you walk down the street, the way modern women walk is like they own the fucking road. Now, I walk on the right side of the street like it's supposed to, right here, right? But a lot of times I see women walking in the middle and they don't fucking back down, thinking like, well, this is a fucking Western man. He'll back down like a pussy that he is. I don't fucking back down. So, I just continue walking. If we want to get, run into my shoulder, that's fine. And it hasn't happened yet. Usually they blink the last second because a lot of them know that this is Thailand. I will shoulder you and you'll just fall down on your ass and nothing's going to happen to me. No one's going to hold cops and so it happened the other day. There were two girls walking and they just weren't going to back out. So shouldered one. Not too hard, but, and it is what it is. I recommend that men don't back down from women's bullshit, especially when they're physically challenging them. One of the most popular video on my channel here is when a man defended his wife when she got jumped by 5 females and essentially beat the fuck out of them in self-defense, right? Absolutely. Western men are just such beta males and pussies nowadays that they need to be shamed. Talking about what The Rock said, they need to be shamed. So yeah, there is no excuse. This is when men become men again, I will shut this channel down. There will be no reason. There will be no reason whatsoever. If you want to ditch modern women and move abroad for more traditional relationships, go to themillionmanproject.com, take my most comprehensive course, and change your life.